Take a look. The packaging on these fertilizer bags clearly states the exact percentages of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. The instructions are equally detailed, how much to apply per hectare, and the precise timing to ensure optimal absorption and maximum yield. However, there is one thing almost no chemical fertilizer manufacturer mentions on their label where the fertilizer residue ultimately ends up. Does it simply dissolve into the soil? Unfortunately, it does not. There is much more hidden behind those ideal NPK ratios than you might realize. Let's dive in and uncover the truth together. Chemical fertilizers were created to solve a practical problem: feeding humanity. Thanks to nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, crops grow faster, greener, and yields skyrocket after just a single season. That is a reality. We came to believe that this was the only path, the ultimate solution. But in nature, nothing gives without taking something back. Applying chemical fertilizers is akin to feeding plants fast food or providing a direct intravenous drip for rapid growth while utterly neglecting the soil beneath. In this process, the soil is no longer viewed as a living organism. Instead, it is treated as a lifeless anchor, existing merely to keep the plants upright. Imagine this. When chemicals are poured on excessively, the tiny microorganisms responsible for aerating and loosening the soil are wiped out. Consequently, the earth becomes hardened, depleted, and loses its inherent natural fertility. While the crops may appear lush, it is a forced green, a chemical green. It is comparable to a person relying solely on supplements without any natural immunity. The soil becomes entirely dependent. Without fertilizer, it can no longer nourish the plants, nor can it heal itself. This is the bittersweet lie of modern agriculture. Plants can remain green through fertilizers, even when the life within the soil has been extinguished. Imagine this. When the soil becomes compacted and depleted, it no longer acts like a sponge capable of absorbing and retaining nutrients. At this stage, excess fertilizer doesn't simply vanish. Instead, it begins to escape from the fields. With just a single downpour, chemicals such as nitrates leach deep into the earth, seeping into the very groundwater aquifers we tap into for our wells. Meanwhile, phosphorus washes across the surface, flowing directly into ponds, lakes, and rivers. The substances humans poured out with the intent of nourishing plants have now veered off course. They have officially embarked on a perilous new journey, the water cycle, where every current eventually flows back toward our own lives. Once washed into rivers and lakes, these nutrients no longer serve as food for crops. Instead, they become an excessive source of nourishment that triggers a frantic explosion of algae and moss. Imagine a thick layer of green algae covering the water's surface like a giant net. They block out sunlight and greedily deplete the water of its oxygen. As a result, fish, shrimp, and other aquatic creatures are left with nothing to breathe. They perish slowly, eventually surfacing and turning the water white with their remains. Rivers that were once clear and blue suddenly change color, becoming foul-smelling and eerily silent as life vanishes. It is a bitter irony that the very thing we created with the original intent to sow the seeds of life is now silently suffocating other ecosystems. The danger of excess nitrogen lies not only in what we see beneath the soil or within our water sources. It leads a more fearsome second life. It ascends into the sky. When applied excessively to fields, a vast amount of nitrogen, unabsorbed by plants, is converted by bacteria into a gas known as nitrous oxide. Did you know this gas has a global warming potential nearly 300 times greater than that of common carbon dioxide? It acts like a dense blanket, tightly wrapping the planet and trapping heat inside, directly accelerating the climate change fever we are currently enduring. At this point, the story is no longer about a single bag of fertilizer or a farmer's small plot of land. Those granules of fertilizer have transformed into colorless, odorless gas molecules, silently attacking the shared atmosphere of all humanity. From a small error in cultivation, the consequences have spiraled, shattering the natural balance of our entire planet. Remember, once water is contaminated with chemicals, it never truly disappears. It simply travels in a cycle, eventually finding its way back to us. Groundwater is pumped up, passed through filtration systems, and flows into our kitchen taps and drinking pitchers, ultimately dissolving into every cell of your body. The most terrifying culprit is nitrate. It is completely invisible, colorless, odorless, and tasteless. You cannot detect it with your eyes or your palate, but once it enters the bloodstream, it begins a silent assault. Nitrate competes with oxygen, stripping the blood of its ability to transport the vital life force needed to nourish the body. In adults, this manifests as persistent fatigue, but for infants, it is a fatal hazard. It causes blue baby syndrome, a condition where a child's body gradually turns blue as they are suffocated from the inside by a lack of oxygen. The danger does not stop there. The accumulation of these chemical compounds over the years acts like a slow-motion time bomb. They disrupt the endocrine system, devastate the body's natural healing capacity, and silently sow the seeds for dangerous chronic diseases. Because this pain does not arrive immediately after a meal, and a sip of water does not trigger an instant fever, we remain complacent in the belief that we are safe. In reality, we are merely trading our long-term health for a fleeting sense of convenience. When the land is exhausted and stripped of its natural vitality, farmers inadvertently fall into a trap of dependency. Imagine the soil at this stage as a debilitated body, no longer capable of nourishing crops on its own. This forces people to inject increasingly heavy doses of chemical fertilizers just to sustain the previous year's yield. It is akin to abusing painkillers to ignore a bleeding wound. It offers only immediate relief while deepening a chemical addiction, all while the health of the soil hits rock bottom. Consequently, a massive financial burden emerges as input costs escalate, turning farmers into debtors of chemical corporations. The entire farming system becomes incredibly fragile and vulnerable. A slight fluctuation in fertilizer prices or an erratic shift in weather is enough to cause crops, which have survived solely on medication, to collapse instantly due to a lack of natural resistance. Ultimately, an agriculture built entirely on chemicals is like a castle built on sand. It may appear grand and sturdy, but in reality, it possesses no resilience against the storms of our time. We must look at this fairly. Chemical fertilizer, in its essence, is not an enemy of humanity. In the past, it served as a savior, helping mankind overcome devastating famines and securing the food supply for billions of people across the globe. However, our greatest mistake lay in deifying it, promoting it as an all-encompassing ultimate solution to completely replace the natural laws of the earth. In reality, chemical fertilizer should only ever be a seasoning, a minor supplement within a vast ecological system. When humans become overly ambitious, treating the land like a factory and forcing Mother Nature to operate with the cold, precise mechanicalness of a soulless machine, that is when the balance is shattered. And as we know, when pushed to the brink, nature will always find a way to strike back, leaving humanity to bear the brunt of the most painful consequences. The solution to this crisis is by no means to abandon production, nor is it to turn our backs on or completely deny the role of chemistry. The real key lies in two words: balance. It is time for a shift in mindset, moving from forcing plants to grow fast to nourishing a living soil. Let us begin by returning to the earth what it truly needs: the revival of the microbial ecosystem through organic fertilizers and well-decomposed compost. By collecting straw, dry leaves, and fruit peels to compost with probiotics, or applying them directly as mulch, we create a rich layer of humus over time. This makes the soil porous and invites earthworms and beneficial organisms to return. Instead of monocropping, which exhausts the land, we should practice crop rotation to give the soil time to rest and naturally replenish its nutrients. Vegetative cover must also be preserved as a protective armor to retain moisture, prevent erosion, and safeguard the precious nutrients deep within the earth. When the soil is truly healthy and fertile, crops will inherently grow strong with their most robust natural resistance. In that time, we'll see that aligning with nature means we stop mortgaging the health of future generations for the sake of instant results. We have always deluded ourselves into thinking that we master and control nature. In reality, we are merely using chemicals to delay the inevitable consequences. Remember this: while chemical fertilizers may help you feed your crops for a few seasons, only a living soil possesses the strength to nourish a sustainable future for ourselves and the generations to come. It is time to transform our perspective on agriculture, starting with respecting every handful of earth beneath our feet. And do you have any other ways to improve crop yields without relying on chemical intervention? Leave a comment below so that I and everyone else can learn from you. If you found this video helpful, please share it with your friends. I look forward to seeing you in the next videos.